Hey guys, Tom here again from SynthHacker.com. In this video, we're going to be using Serum's Juno-inspired waveforms to create a warm cinematic pad synth. So I hope you like the sound. I think it's a very versatile patch, could be used for a lot of different genres. Some of you may recognize the patch as one of the pads from my Oscillator for Serum preset pack. If you've not yet checked that out and you want to help support the channel, you can head on over to SynthHacker.com or click the link in the description. So the very first thing we're going to do, even before touching an oscillator, is to go straight into the modulation matrix and use one of Serum's chaos oscillators to modulate Serum's master tune. This is just a easy way to give us that analog style pitch drift straight off the bat. Now, this is going to be a 2 oscillator patch. Starting in oscillator A, we're going to select the analog wavetable JNO, which is basically a collection of waveforms based on a Juno analog synth. I assume they're based on a 106, but I could be wrong about that. If you have any idea, I'd actually be really interested to hear from you in the comments. The first waveform we're going to use is a saw wave, which we're going to give 5 voices of unison, as well as just quickly softening the attack and release to give us a more pad-like shape. For oscillator B, we're also going to use one of the Juno waveforms, specifically this kind of scuffed looking triangle wave. Again, we're also going to give this 5 voices of unison, but we're also going to pitch it up an octave to help fill out the frequency range. As you can tell, this kind of triangle Juno waveform has a really nice kind of floaty tone, but with some extra harmonics. With both oscillators set, we're going to layer them together, bringing down the amplitude of oscillator B slightly until we get a nice balance between the two. So at the start of the video, you might have noticed that the sound had some panning modulation. Before we set this up, we're going to quickly take a look at the global tab and specifically the unison width amount. By default in Serum, the individual voices of unison are panned all the way across the stereo field. Generally, this is great for maximizing the width of sounds, but in this case, with us wanting to take more manual control over the panning, we're going to slightly reduce the width of both oscillators to around 50%. With that set, we're going to use a free moving LFO set to a very low rate to modulate the panning of both oscillator A and B. Now, instead of both of these oscillators being panned simultaneously with each other, we're going to invert the modulation range of oscillator B so that both oscillators pan left and right independently. As you can tell, this really helps to give the pad a more dynamic sound with some nice stereo movement. So at this point, you could move straight into the effects and processing, but with pad sounds like this, I typically like to also add a bit of inharmonic texture. In this case, I used one of the granular textures I made for my free SynthHacker Essentials bundle, which you can download using the link in the description if you wish, but obviously feel free to experiment with whatever noise samples you like. Just before we jump into the effects, we're also going to add a 12 dB low pass filter for a couple of different purposes. Firstly, to attenuate some of the highs of oscillator A and our noise to let oscillator B's harmonics cut through. Secondly, we're also going to use the LFO we set up earlier to modulate the filter pan, again to contribute to the stereo movement we're after. The way the pan parameter works in the filter is by offsetting the filtered and dry signal to opposite stereo outputs. Finally, because this is a pad and we're going for a bit of a spacey sound, we're obviously going to add some reverb, but we're also going to add a filter in the effects chain after the reverb that we're going to slowly automate over time to open up the synth. One thing to be aware of when it comes to Serum's filters is that even when the cutoff is all the way open, there is still a bit of an attenuation of the higher frequencies, but you can get around this by automating the filter's mix amount. So there we have it. Hopefully this gives you a really solid template for creating your own analog sounding pads in Serum. I think the Juno waveforms sound really great, and I'm sure I'll end up making a bunch more patches with them in the future. Again, if you want to support these videos and also get your hands on some great sounding presets just like this one for Serum, you can head on over to synthhacker.com or click the link in the description. Let me know if there's any other types of sounds you'd like to see me cover, but other than that guys, thanks a lot for watching and I'll see you in the next video.